Welcome to Influential Women of Washington State. I'm Katie Hall. In this episode, we deep dive with Chief of Police Carmen Best about her new role. We cover her 5 priorities for the Seattle Police Department: officer accountability, women having a seat at the decision table, and male allyship. Women in law enforcement leadership are essential to helping us close the gap in equity of pay. Badges are silver and gold, not pink and blue. Tune in as we deep dive with Chief of Police Carmen Best. Talk to us a little bit about your role as the Chief of Police in the largest city in our state.
Well, I'm very excited to take on that role. It's been really a challenge, but also an honor. The first thing I did right out the gate was establish 5 priorities for the organization. So the first one, shouldn't be a surprise, is going to be excellence in service, making sure that we're providing the service to the community that they expect from us. And then, of course, reducing crime and disorder. That's a fundamental responsibility of a police department. We don't want to lose sight of that with all the other things that we are, committed to do. And then, of course, it's having honor and professionalism. And really what that means is that when the officers or even the sworn folks who are supporting us, when they see people in the uniform, they feel a sense of honor and pride in what they're doing, that they know we're a professional organization. No one should have to feel, because of whatever's happening, that they can't feel honorable about the work that they're doing. And we want to make sure that we're being professional in all our interactions with the community. So that was a third. And then business efficiencies, just making sure that we are being judicious with the taxpayers' money. The police department has a $352 million budget, and so we have to make sure that all the things that we're doing.
How much is that budget again?
$352 million.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that we need to make sure that we're using, it pays for equipment, gas, cars, lockers, facilities, training, all the things that come in, overtime, all that stuff that comes in. So we want to make sure that we're looking at every aspect of our budget, how it's being spent, and being accountable for that. And then last, but not least, is just having data-driven policies and practices, making sure that we are using technology to help us deploy officers to, the right areas at the right time and the right day. We can now get so much data about when people are calling, what types of calls, where in the city, so we want to make sure we're using all that information, one, to inform our officers and our deployments, but also, as much as we can, have it public facing so people can go in and look for themselves in their neighborhood and see what's happening in their neighborhood, what kind of calls for service, and that type of thing. So we really want to use that as well to help us do a better job.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people are happy and excited about you being the Chief of Police in Seattle. So talk to us a little bit about, what does that feel like from the excitement level and then the level of responsibility that comes with that excitement?
Well, certainly there's a high level of responsibility, but I've been working toward this for a lot of years.
Absolutely.
I put in 26 years at the organization. I've done a lot of training. I had great mentors. Certainly Chief O'Toole got me ready, and I feel more than ready to take on the full-time permanent job.
Yeah, and a lot of people are excited to see that because, you're a hometown hero. And so when you hear that, what do you feel?
I feel a great sense of honor and excitement, but also a sense of responsibility, right? No one wants to let people down. So I feel I want to make sure that I'm in there, that I'm doing the job that I'm supposed to do, that I'm supporting the officers, engaging with the community, being responsible, like I said, with the 5 priorities, how we're going to make sure our budget is good, our data is good, we're being honorable and professional, that we're taking care of, crime and disorder, and that we're providing the most excellent service to the community that we serve.
What was one of your biggest lessons in this 26 years?
I've learned that you have to be flexible, and you have to be resilient, right? Because everything is not going to go your way every time. So you have to be able to be resilient in what you're doing. You have to really work hard all of the time to build trust, both internally and outside the organization, so that when things happen, people have a level of confidence in what you're telling them and what's going on. They know because they know you, and they won't do that if you don't, build those relationships early on.
How was that transition for you when you transitioned from Deputy Chief of Police to the Chief of Police with your peers?
There's a difference. There is a difference. People say there is, and you're not sure until you're there, right? Yeah, there is a difference because suddenly you are it. Right?
Yeah.
When things happen, it's not like you're going to be able to turn and say, well, we're going to give it to the chief. You are the chief, right? So you have this higher level of responsibility, and you would not be human if you didn't feel that higher level of responsibility. You want to make sure that you're doing the right things and doing the right things by everybody. And I go back to really following your convictions. Legal, ethical, moral. who am I helping? Who am I bringing up? How am I keeping this organization where it should be, and focus on the future and moving forward and evolving? It's really, really critical. And people are looking at the leadership to take it there. I think we have a great leadership team. No one's going to do it on their own. No one ever does. So we have wonderful people on our team working together collaboratively and working, of course, with the mayor's office to make sure that we have a vision and we're pushing toward it.
When you think about the accountability of officers, as far as responsibility goes, and as far as being accountable to their badge and being accountable to the community, what are some thoughts you want to share with us about that?
Accountability is very, very important. We've gone through this reform process. We're in full and effective compliance, but we still have to show that we can sustain that over the next, few years or the next years into the future. So part of that, going through that process, is making sure that we have the policies and procedures that, meet the community's expectations. And then we train everybody on those policies and procedures, so to make sure that everybody knows this is how we do it. Right? These are the things that we expect. These are our expectations. And after that comes the point of accountability, because now we've trained you. You know what they are. They're in writing. And then when there's an intentional or deliberate violation, then we have to hold people accountable. And that is what the community expects, right? But it has to be a balance. We have to make sure that we're not expecting things of people that we haven't trained them to do, taught them to do, and work with them and give them that opportunity to make sure that they have it down. So we've been very careful about that, but people know that they're going to be held accountable for the work that they're doing. And the community is holding us accountable, and me accountable personally, for making sure that these things go the way they're supposed to.
As a mother, I am startled every time I hear about gun violence in schools. It is disturbing to think that as a society, we have fallen into such devastating times where kids are being killed in record numbers at schools every year and sometimes several times per year. Next, the Chief of Police discusses Seattle Police Department strategies on school shootings. So there's been a lot happening just across America right now with period, for a long time, but especially recently here in the schools and like the school violence and the shootings. What is the role that the police department play in that when shootings start happening in the schools and you get that first call in?
Well, clearly there's that first rapid response to get there quickly and to make sure that we're going in. Typically, we're going to go in and look for the shooter if it's an active shooter situation. And we've done a lot of training over the years for that. And it really started back when Columbine happened. And they were taking the more of the approach, and it was sort of a national approach that you would wait for your backup to get there and come up with a plan and all that. If somebody's in a school shooting, we got to set up a team, we got to get in there, and we have to have rapid deployment. So that is the way we train now for those types of situations. We're also working with the schools about, knowing what we're going to do, how we're going to respond. A lot of the schools will go into lockdown if something is happening at or near the school. It doesn't have to be right on the premises, but let's say there's some sort of, violent or shooting near the school. They'll lock down the school. They have a policy for that. And we're making sure that we're communicating with each other on that. And in fact, just about 2 or 3 days ago, our deputy chief and one of our commanders met with a whole host of school principals to talk about some of these issues to make sure that we're keeping our kids as safe as possible on these campuses. So
you're on the preventative end of this as well,
of course,
which is really good.
Yes, of course.
And so, how is Seattle Police Department taking the lead because you're the biggest police department in our state? Am I right?
That is right.
How are you taking the lead with some of these other smaller cities? Taking the lead to being able to maybe help or educate or inform them on policies that's working in the city of Seattle?
Yeah, we really focus mostly on our own city, but
it's a big one. Yeah,
and people will either
get on board or not.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
So I can tell you that recently I went down to Olympia and testified on supporting local municipalities having their own jurisdiction and their own control over gun laws in their city, because every place is different. And in Seattle, there are certain things that people generally want to see because we're so dense in population, and it might be a little different for us, and it might be in Eastern Washington or in Chehalis or someplace else. So we really want to make sure that we have the opportunity to make sensible gun laws that make sense for our city.
When you think about what happened down in Marysville, was that 2-3 years ago? How has that impacted your job?
You mean the school shooting that happened? Well, again, we're just making sure that we're communicating with the schools at all times, that we're looking at the signs. And really it's for the schools, because they're much more connected to the kids than we are. We're coming in after the fact. So if they see signs or signals that there's a problem, if families, and you've heard this all over the news, if families see or friends see something that causes them concern, we want people to go ahead and report that right away, so that we can do the proper intervention to make sure that that there's nothing going to happen. If they're hearing threats, don't just assume they're not going to follow through, right?
Right,
So
exactly.
yeah, we definitely want to do education. I think that there's a lot more focus on it right now, not just locally but across the country. So I'm hopeful and believing that we're going to do a better job of averting these school violence situations.
Let's discuss the pink elephant in the room, controversy around gun violence and guns in schools. Today we are meeting with a panel of local leading professionals to discuss this topic. There's a lot going on right now in schools from K through 12 to higher education in the form of bullying, cyberbullying, and there's all the gun violence in the schools. Let's just talk a little bit about that as a group of professionals and community leaders.
I would just love to also, just as a point in the conversation, not the whole conversation, to acknowledge that numerically, and I think in the societal impact, even in terms of our collective souls, the street violence from guns is much more impactful issue that we don't talk about.
Yeah.
I love and I hate that we're going to get serious about gun violence issues because it's seen happening in these incidents in schools, which are horrible. I feel bad even as a pediatrician saying this way, but you have cities where the street one-on-one, one-on-two violence with guns is, and often in communities of color, and not just Chicago, like all around.
Yeah.
That is a societal issue that I'm almost sad that we don't pull the whole conversation together when we talk about this.
Yeah.
I don't
That's
know
a
if
good point. That's a
the
good point.
acute gets the attention, the chronic doesn't get the attention.
Correct, and there's something societal about that chronic,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That is I'm gonna.
No,
I'm
no,
gonna
no,
listen more,
no.
but,
Let's go there.
you started to.
Let's go there. That's a good topic.
Yeah,
I mean, being
I
from
agree.
Detroit, that's something I grew up with. So it's like it was just a norm, right?
Right.
It's just like it was
Right.
normal. Like, okay, so out of all of my 6 siblings, which one of us is going to make it to 18?
Right. Who's going to be in jail? Who's going to be?
Who's going to be in jail? Who's going to end up dead? Who's going to make it? Right? All of us aren't going to make it, right? And so, no, that's a real topic. I think we can touch on that first, and then we can go into some of how, because it starts there, and that's how it ends up.
And it's not
in
just
other
that.
areas.
We talk about the opioid epidemic.
Yes.
It's really when that crossover into white society that becomes now a topic we are going to take on, and we're
Yeah.
going to call it something almost more like an illness, right? We use epidemic when it was crack or when it's something else.
Just bad
Then
communities,
it's
yeah.
just those people doing bad things, and so this is a recurring
Yeah.
dialogue that our society we have to pause sometimes and
Yeah.
say, yes, this is horrible, and this bigger picture also needs to be talked about.
What is the impact on some of the things that has happened in our country in the last 18 years and these young children as they're growing up? Large question, I know.
I'd like to point out the children in Florida. I think we've seen so much come as a result of them taking the initiative to speak up and to go down to their Congress office and really kind of change that and to have their voices heard. And I think that we talk about it, and we kind of get jaded and we're like, there's too much, it's too big of a problem, and we skirt it to the side. And these Florida children have, they took a bus and they showed up. And I think it's so important that we listen and we really, really hear what the future generation needs and wants and going forward with gun violence. So.
So glad you said that.
That's really, I like the sort of the hope in that, because I think we saw that in the environmental movement. This generation of young people, they recycle, they look at you like, what's wrong with you if you're not recycling, right? It's part of their DNA. They think that's what normal is. And how do we make sure that the next generation of children just grow up thinking this is ridiculous? Why are you taking away our safety?
Yeah.
I find the debate about gun laws to be an example of the kind of polarization that's happened in so much of our debates that makes it hard to make any change, because any change is going to have a winner and a loser, and we're tribal almost about it. Like any kind of gun control at all is a loss for gun rights. Any kind of we don't, maybe on those of us on the more progressive side, don't want to acknowledge gun rights in a way that it's so hard to meet in the middle these days because everything is very polarized. I think the media contributes to this in some ways. I think social media certainly contributes to it. But the solutions, in my mind, always lie somewhere in the middle, and it can feel like that's impossible. But we saw some real progress. We saw progress in Florida. I mean, those kids made a difference. They passed laws in Florida that seemed impossible 6 months ago, and they're passed now. So I think that having that kind of energy to just kind of like kick down the old norms and say, we're going to put all that aside and we're going to talk about fixing something now.
Right.
And not being too stuck on what the fix is, but having it be something that people can come together on, and then we have to just listen to each other. We have to be willing to accept that people on both sides of the political spectrum have hearts and care about people and care in their own ways and have their own, they have their own ethic, but there's a place where we come together, and that's, I think, where the solutions lie to gun violence, among many other topics.
Can I respectfully have a different view?
Yeah, of course. We haven't had a different view all day.
Purpose of this.
I agree with that idea, and I'm probably I'm the last person who could ever make a good political career because I'm not as good at compromise as I should be, so I'll acknowledge that. And then I start to think sometimes there are issues that are just really extremely wrong, and when you have the hope of evidence that shows that this country is such an outlier in its approach to guns, such an outlier, it begs something different than this compromise discussion to me. It begs something much more foundational about let's have a real conversation about who we are and what we value, and whether a compromise that says only 1,000 kids in school die a year through gun violence instead of 2,000, or whatever the number is cutting that in half really progress, or isn't it? And so there are certain issues where I'm not sure that the quest for compromise is necessarily always the right one.
I kind of completely agree with some of the things you're saying, and I had a hard time understanding why. I just don't understand why we can't change faster. And so I asked a coworker who's, part of the NRA and, really, really, really an advocate for gun rights and things like that. And I can't say it changed my mind, but it was definitely important and helpful to see every perspective.
We have to.
And so I think we should all continue to voice any sort of opinion so that we can.
There was a time when we had an assault weapons ban, and it wasn't that long ago, and it was under a Republican president who was a strong supporter of gun rights. So we can have much more protection, and we can have it with people having different political views.
Exactly,
I think the difference is we've reached a point where we treat everything as a zero-sum game, and you have to win or have to lose.
Or is it even political?
But I think, I think also that when you talk to folks who are actually gun right advocates, not all of them agree with the NRA. That's exactly right. And this has become an ego issue for this one particular group of individuals, and they have money.
Right.
And that's, it's not, it doesn't represent people. It doesn't necessarily represent people who value gun rights.
And there's some of us.
Let me just add that I don't. When I say people can't come together and talk to each other, I am not saying that the kids, the kids who are raising this issue,
we're not taking it. I'm not taking it that way.
They are raising an issue that needs to be addressed, and they are saying this has got to end. And that is not. That is absolutely what we need. We need people in those positions to raise it. But the discussion that comes in behind them, I think, needs to be able to. We need to be able to move forward, and we need to do it together. And I think if you can do it in Florida, you can do it here. You can do it anywhere.
As women bring their whole hearts to the workplace, many times a seat at the decision-making table isn't there for them, or they're just simply not being heard. Chief Best tells us why women need a seat at the table and why women should truly consider being open to mentorship from both men and women. What's the importance of women being able to make it to Chief of Police?
Well, I think it sends a signal that, one, we're evolving as a society, because I don't think that would have happened, many, many years ago. So we're evolving, we're being more inclusive. And I think it gives young women just the knowledge that they can do it, right? So I think we've come a long way in that regard. I mean, there's still some work to do, but we've come a long way in that regard. And it means something, because who doesn't have a mother or sister, you know, and you want to be able, you want the people in your life to have an equal shot at whatever, or an equal opportunity, I should say, at whatever positions are out there. And so seeing that, you know, seeing it lived out is important.
Absolutely. And so you have 2 daughters.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, like, how are they feeling about mom now being the chief of police?
Oh, my girls are, you know, we're a really close family. They're very supportive of me, of my role. You know, they have the unique experience of having, you know, I've been a cop since they've known me, right?
Yeah.
I was a cop
They don't know
when
any
they were born.
different.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
don't know any different. So this is just mom, you know, moving.
Growing up, like moving up in her career.
Yeah, exactly. So they've been wonderful and supportive. And my husband has too. I mean, I have a really great family. They are completely supportive of me in all those endeavors. And my husband often jokes that, you know, he's the other man in my life because I'm really married to the job, you know, but he just parachutes
He's the boyfriend.
in. Yeah, he just parachutes in whatever. But, you know, I love the work. I love the work. You know, it is really important to me. I mean, I'm doing it, you know, half my life.
Absolutely.
So, you know, you cannot
Yeah.
be engaged in something for decades like that and not be committed to it and not really enjoy it, right? So,
Yeah, absolutely. What are you doing in regards to ensuring that other women are coming into police services as well?
Yeah, as a department, we're working really hard to make sure that we have officers that reflect the community that we serve. So we're looking at women, we're looking at people of color and ethnicities and different religions and all of those things, so that when we are out in the public doing the work that we're doing, that people can feel a level of attachment to the officers who are working here. So that's really, really important to us. Right now we have about 14% women, which is right
really?
around the national
yep,
average.
that's good.
But I would love to see that, you know, increased, you know, and so we are always, you know, talking to, you know, being very intentional and deliberate about our recruiting, about our work in areas where we think women are going to be prevalent. And then we're also trying to show people what the job is really about, because I think often people see what's on television and they see, you know, car chases and gunfights and people rappelling off buildings. And that is so little of what policing is about. It really is, you know, meeting people on a human level, sometimes at their most vulnerable moments, you know, engaging with them in ways that are being helpful and protecting them in a lot of cases. And that goes for whether they're suspects or victims, because sometimes people do things wrong and they still need to have some sort of ability to rely on the you know, humanization of the officers to them. So that's what's really important.
Absolutely. Like, now that you're the chief of police, what are some of the long-term goals that you're looking to do to be able to tell that story? Because you're right, when we turn on TV, it's always seeing conflict when it comes to police, and we know that that's not true. It can't be like that every day. So what are some of the things that your department's doing?
Well, one of the things is just
storytelling?
really engaging with people and taking the opportunity to engage with people in non-enforcement, you know, capacities. So for one, like working with young people in particular, we have what we call CPAL, which is our Seattle Police Athletic League. So we play flag football and, you know, basketball and have other kind of activities for them, summer camps, because that gives us a chance to work with young people, to let them know that officers are just people like they are. You know, the officers are out there. I love watching. I've gone out there several times. They're coaching the kids and they're writing it down. It's awesome to see that sort of interaction and investing in the community in that way, and investing in young people. That's a really important thing. We also bring young kids in the summer, usually about 32 or so.
Oh, wow.
And we'll bring them in and we'll show them all about the department. We'll take them through different, you know, scenarios, teach them what we do, because there's so many aspects of policing that aren't just the cops on the street. There's crime scene investigation. So if you're interested in science or mathematics or those types of things, there's also.
That's why you all focus on STEM within Seattle Police Department.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Of course. We have many aspects of our job that aren't, you know, simply the officers responding to calls, although that's a great part of our job. So we really want to reach out and get people to know us, you know, in all the capacities. So we're being very intentional about that. We're working with young people, working with, you know, women in particular, you know, going to events where women will be most prevalent so that we can reach out to them and talk to them about the job, showing them other women in the job, you know, once they see that, you know, that, oh, she can do this job, she's been doing it for 20 years. That kind of thing is very helpful. And so, we just need to be deliberate about it. And then telling our story, because there's so many good things that happen for every bad story that's on TV, and there will be some.
Of course.
That's just the nature of this
life.
work.
Yeah.
But there are so many good things that happen really on a daily basis. So many people who are giving of themselves, who are volunteering, who are working with young people, who are seeing people in crisis and doing the right thing and, you know, trying to help them out. And, you know, we really changed are crisis response, the people who are, basically suffering some sort of mental, breakdown or capacity at some point. And we really have worked hard to train our officers about how to address that and how to deal with that. And we've reduced the number of times we have to use force in those situations. So again, being really deliberate about, engaging and working with community members is very, very important.
We have to talk about male allyship because you're in a profession where it is dominated by men.
Yep.
So how have you leveraged male allyship to get to where you are?
I've been really fortunate. I've had people reach out to me. Maybe they just saw something in me. I don't know. But they've been very helpful. I went from captain to assistant chief. I wasn't vying for it. I hadn't been a captain that long, but I got a call from a white male, who said, I think you're going to do a good job here. I would love to see you come up and take this opportunity. And, I'm happy to help you along the way. So, there is opportunity, with everybody. You don't want to lock yourself into only women, only men, only whatever, because there's opportunity, and a lot of people bring a lot of experiences to the table. And the more that we are having those conversations and engaging with one another, the more likely we're going to bring more people in.
I've been hearing this terminology about women needing to have a seat at the table, and I've been toying around with that. Like, do we really need a seat at the table, or do we need to be able to create our own tables and stop worrying so much about having a seat at the table?
Yeah,
what is your thoughts
I do think
about that?
women need to have a seat at the table.
Okay.
I do think that not just women, but that whatever is there, we need to be diverse, right? The more opinions and thoughts and experiences we bring to the discussion and the conversation about whatever it is, the better off we are. Because we don't want to miss something because we were siloed, right? So, and then we also have to look around when we're having these discussions about, particularly in policing, who's not here? Whose voice isn't being heard, and then let's be deliberate, intentional about getting those voices heard as well. Because I really absolutely believe that the more people that we can engage with and connect with, the more thoughts and more experiences, we're going to make better decisions.
Absolutely. So is it a combination of both, or is it we need a seat at the table?
Yeah, having a seat at the table is good, but when you're at the table, making sure that you're being inclusive to others is very important.
I love that. And so, I want to ask you one other question. I'm working with about 300 girls right now at Mount Rainier High School.
Oh, wow.
Whew, yeah. Between the age of 13 and 18 years old. And so when I think about them, they were born post 911. And so a lot of the questions they were asking me, we're having a conference with them, they said, well, we want to know about adversity, and like we see these women in these excellent positions, but like how did they get there, and like how did they fight against the adversity that they went through in their careers? So if I can ask you that question on behalf of those students, what would you say? What was like your greatest level of adversity in this 26 years?
Here's the advice I would give.
Okay.
One, you have to work hard.
Absolutely.
Right? You have to work hard. You can't skate or try to cut corners. You have to be all in.
Yeah.
And the other is that you have to be true to yourself, and true to your, I mentioned this before, but true to your convictions and doing the right thing. There will be people who will see you, and they'll see the uniform, or they'll see and they will automatically have, as you know, everybody has their biases.
Yeah.
But you have to remember, that's their issue.
Right, it
not
got nothing to do
mine.
with you.
Yeah. If they have a problem, that's their problem. I'm going to do what I know is right. I'm going to be ethical. I'm going to be fair. I'm going to be moral. And, if you do those things and you work hard, by and large, you're going to be okay. You'll have some setbacks. That's where the resiliency comes in. But by and large, you're going to do well.
Thanks for joining us in our exploration of leadership. We hope you're encouraged and inspired by Carmen and women just like her, leading our police departments across the nation. Please join us for future episodes of Influential Women of Washington State to hear more in-depth discussions with extraordinary women. Until next time, I'm Katie Haw.